What's up guys, Everything Apple Pro here, and Samsung just dropped two brand new phones, amazing in every way, the new Samsung Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge. So in this video, I want to compare these new phones to the iPhone 6s Plus, because around this time of year, I know a lot of people are going to be upgrading phones. Contracts are ending, you just want to get something new, and Samsung makes it easy. They announced these two amazing new phones with all this amazing new tech. So let me get into it with this video, and I'm going to cover every feature, every detail, specs, everything you need to know, and all those smaller things as well, and compare them to the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus, because I want you guys to have an informed decision on which phone is better suited for you and why. So with the new S7 and S7 Edge, which were announced today, Samsung has actually made the categories clear. So the S7 is going to be the smaller device at 5.2 inches. The S7 Edge is going to have the larger screen. So I think Samsung realized that all the new phones and the Pluses were too confusing, so they just minimized it to just an S7 and an S7 Edge. One with a smaller display, flat regular phone, the other with a larger curved display. And I gotta say, Samsung really put the effort into listening to people for these phones. They actually were very proud in the event about them listening to people, considering what to do with the phones based on the people's reactions and how they like the previous generation. So with the S7 Edge and S7, Samsung actually refined the design. They made it a lot more comfortable to hold. The rear is curved now on both. So the S7 Edge actually has a front curved display and the rear is curved as well. It looks great in the photos. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. And they say that they focus a lot on one-handed usability, because phones nowadays, as the screens get larger, they get more and more difficult to use. And I gotta say, the 6s Plus has been a pain to use with one hand for me. The curved edges, the huge bezels on it make it very uncomfortable to use one-handed, especially for long periods of time. And with the S7 Edge, what Samsung's goal was to make the S7 Edge more functional and actually usable with one hand. So you'll actually be able to scroll through many things. It'll be like widgets in the notification center on iPhones on the edge of the display. And I thought that was a really great touch. So we have reachability with the iPhone, where the screen will come down with the double press, but it's really not the same as just having it more accessible to your fingers with one hand. Upon first appearance, the S7 Edge doesn't look all that different. It's actually very similar. There's a little bit less bezel, the home button is more square, the cameras are just a little bit larger, and everything is on the inside, and there is quite a lot that's changed. I think that Samsung S7 changed more going from S6 to S7 than Apple changed going from 6 to 6S. As for materials, Gorilla Glass 4 remains. We don't have Gorilla Glass 5 on it yet, and the same aluminum shell. So it's proven to be very durable in the past in my videos, and I cannot wait to put that to the test again this year with the S7 and iPhone 6s and 6s Plus, which are more durable as well. 6s and 6s Plus use the same material, aircraft grade aluminum 7000 series, same used in the Apple Watch. So it also has a dual ion exchange glass. Both very durable phones. We'll put into the test in the field very soon. Now the Samsungs are the thicker phones, so they actually did get a little bit thicker than before, to accommodate for larger batteries and all the tech put inside of them, especially the new waterproofing. Did I mention this thing is IP68 waterproof? I mean water resistant, waterproof. This thing will survive up to 30 minutes in 1.5 meters of water. I think that's incredible. So Samsung actually took a different approach. Instead of sealing off the ports, they sealed off the phone from the inside. So this does add to the extra thickness of the phone itself. Sizes, not that much different, both pretty much the same category of phones, but Samsung's are a little bit thicker, and the iPhone 6s Plus has the larger footprint than the S7 Edge. Now here's an area where a lot of people were disappointed in Samsung. They didn't up the displays. They didn't change the displays. And I think that's, that's not even considerable for Samsung. Right now, the Samsung Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge have the best mobile displays of any smartphone being produced today. These are top of the line, super AMOLED displays, and the sizes are great. They're vibrant, they're colorful. In my actual review comparing it to the 6S, 6S Plus, this thing is so beautiful. The color is so real. So I gotta give it to Samsung. Why add a 4K display to the phone if the world hasn't caught up to it yet? It's just gonna eat extra battery life. We don't need that yet. The display is already great at 2K. But the actual pixels, 1440 by 2560, are the same on the S7 and S7 Edge. The pixels per inch are so much better than the iPhone counterparts. So the iPhone has smaller display on the 6S and 1920 by 1080p on the 6S Plus. Plus. So 326 and 401 pixels per inch on the iPhones. Samsung Galaxy is way far above, as you can see in the specs. So I gotta give it to Samsung. The display was good. Why change it if nothing was broken? Now, as far as display technology, Samsung has introduced a new always on feature. Now, because it uses a Super AMOLED display, you can actually light up individual pixels without activating the entire back illumination. So I think that's a great advantage for Samsung. You can always have your display on, look at it, see what's going on with your phone without it eating up a lot of battery life. If we did that on an iPhone, which requires the entire back LCD illumination to be on, that would not end well in terms of battery life. Also, the S7 Edge, of course, has that curved display with the quick shortcuts, something that the iPhone doesn't have, but the iPhone does have 3D Touch, which is a pressure-sensitive display, can measure the amount of force you are putting on the display and have different actions accordingly. It's been useful, it's not necessary. It's a little bit of a gimmick, and you can say that the same about the S7 Edge. Both are screen technologies. If you like one, you'll use it. If not, it's just there if you need it. Now, the Samsung Galaxy S7 has made strides in performance. Now, the Samsung Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge, they share internals. Now, depending on which part of the world you're in, you will get different internals. So the international unlocked Samsung Galaxy S7 will have an Exynos 8890 CPU and a Mali T880 GPU. So as far as performance, Samsung says 30% improved CPU performance versus the Galaxy S6. GPU performance seems to jump a lot more every year for both iPhones and Samsung. So CPU performance is the harder one to get. Now, if you're in the States like me, you'll get a Snapdragon 820 CPU. That includes 4 cores that are 2.15 gigahertz and 4 that are 1.6 gigahertz, and it alternates between them, depending on which one you need for better battery life. The iPhone 6s Plus, that 1.8 gigahertz dual core CPU, it doesn't look impressive on paper. The specs are a lot lower, but in performance, it actually did outperform the S6, quite reliably in almost every single test. So I'm very curious to see how these compare now. And in case you guys didn't know, the S7 and S7 Edge are the true competitors of the 6S and 6S Plus. The S6 was competing with the iPhone 6. Now they're up to level because of the weird refresh cycles of both of these manufacturers. Things are a little strange, but now these are the true competitors of each other. And an Adreno 530 GPU will be included stateside in the S7 and S7 Edge. So GPUs have been pretty good. The only downside to the Galaxies is that they have more pixels to push, so they really need to compensate for a larger, more powerful GPU in order to make up for all those pixels. But performance of the GPU in the S6 has been good. Also very curious to see how the S7 compares. 4 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM are standard, while the S6 and S6 Plus only have 2 gigabytes DDR3, so older, slower tech. Now here's where things start to get interesting. Storage is expandable on the S7 and S7 Edge, so they actually in the SIM card slot. Once you pull that out, there are 2 slots, one for the micro SD up to 200 gigabytes upgradable, and one for the SIM card, of course. So I'm actually very excited for that. That's awesome that Samsung listened to their customers and went back and added micro SD support. That's amazing. Now, as for the actual onboard memory, 32 gigabytes and 64 gigabytes will be available on the iPhone 16, 64, and 128. And you got to pay premium for every upgrade. SD card memory is getting cheaper and cheaper, faster and faster, so it's awesome that you have that upgradability, and it's really going to win over a lot of customers. Now, as for the camera, it seems like Samsung made a downgrade from 16 megapixels to 12, but it's an upgrade in the best way. The pixel size is actually higher individually on the camera sensor. So what this means is you will get top-notch low light performance. In the actual keynote, they compared it to the 6S Plus, and I gotta say, I was very impressed. The pixel sizes are about 33% larger than the iPhone 6S Plus. And the aperture itself is a 1.7 f-stop, so that will let in more light. The pixels will be able to capture that light, and in low light performance, you will get unparalleled quality. Now, this thing is also dual pixel. So the S7 and S7 Edge actually will use 100% of the pixels in order for focus. This is one of the highlights that Samsung actually talked about. Basically, the S7 and S7 Edge have the fastest focus, better than laser focus, better than the focus pixels on the iPhone. This will uses 100% of its pixels versus 5% of the iPhone to use for focus. So instant focusing when you go from a close subject to a far subject. When you bring new subjects into the frame, it will focus like that, and I was very blown away by that. Everybody is raving about it. The S7 and S7 Edge both come standard with optical image stabilization. You have to go to the 6S Plus to get that on the iPhone, so I think that's a really cool, great advantage. And the lens itself, it will protrude less, so 0.46 millimeters out of the shell versus 0.77 of the 6S and 6S Plus. And Samsung introduced a new panorama feature that'll actually capture motion as well. Sounds very familiar to live photos on on the iPhone. They didn't say they were adding this to photos, but in panorama, when you actually slide back on the phone, you'll be able to see the action and how it happened instead of getting distorted, figures and people if you actually do on the iPhone. So live photos for panorama, while the iPhone has live photos themselves, which will capture a little bit of audio, a little bit of motion when you 3D touch on the display. So a little bit of both on both devices. And as for capability, the only way the iPhone outshines the Galaxy S7 is in terms of slow motion, which it can capture 240 frames per second instead of 120 at 720p. Now the iPhone still has a little bit of an advantage in some areas on the camera. The sapphire lens crystal cover, which is actually unparalleled in terms of clarity, and True Tone flash for front and rear cameras. So it'll flash the screen or the back LED flash to get a color temperature appropriate for your environment to get the perfect picture every time. 5 megapixel front-facing shooters on both, 1.7 f-stops on the Galaxy and 2.2 on the iPhone. So definitely better low light on the Galaxy as well. Now I gotta say, battery-wise, Samsung really stepped it up this time. 3000 mAh versus 1715 on the iPhone 6s. That's almost double the battery life. With the new efficient internals, this thing will be a killer. All-day battery life, no problem. Now when it gets to the S7 Edge, 3600 mAh versus 2750, still a clear advantage here in the battery. Man, 20% larger than the S6 and S6 Edge. Now we don't know if that's going to reflect 20% better battery life, a little bit more or less. We don't know that yet, but who's going to complain about getting 20% more battery life? Even though it's not upgradable anymore, still, that's a good chunk of battery in the phone without getting too obnoxiously bigger. And the advantage the S7 and S7 Edge have, basically quick charge, wireless charging, and an ultra low power mode. So, some great advantages for battery life. And the iPhone has the low power mode, but it cannot compete to the ultra power saving mode on the Galaxy, which is true starvation mode for the battery. Now for the wireless internals, pretty much the same, Bluetooth 4.2 standard, 802.11 AC Wi-Fi standard. The one area where the S7 outshines the iPhone is theoretical download speeds over LTE. 450 megabits download per second versus 300, maximum on the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus. Now, anything else that stood out to me, pretty much the speakers, still one speaker setup on both devices, both on the bottom. The Galaxy S7, the waterproofing, that's going to be a huge killer. The iPhone 7 is said to receive its own waterproofing, but right now the S7 will be one of the most capable phones on the market. Upgradable storage, waterproofing, beautiful display, beautiful design, very comfortable, very fast in every single way. I gotta say I love this, and Samsung is really improving what they have. A lot of people were disappointed that the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus didn't have enough oomph, enough things to win them over to buy it. But the Galaxy S7 really looking like a worthy upgrade to the S6. Now, as far as the OS that it's going to ship with, Marshmallow 6.0.1 on the Galaxy. On the iPhone, we have iOS 9.3 being the most current at the moment, or it's coming out very soon. So, you can pick and choose between these, which one you like more. But I gotta say, there's a lot of features on Android I like that the iPhone doesn't have, and vice versa as well. Prices aren't official yet, but they're expected to start at $700 for the S7 and $800 for the higher storage option, $800 for the S7 Edge, and $900 for the higher option. On the iPhone, we all know the storage sizes and the prices. They're not very fair nowadays, but hopefully the iPhone 7 improves upon that. The S7 only has 2 color options, a black and a gold, whereas the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus have 4 color options. The S7 Edge has another additional color option, a silver titanium, so it's exclusive to the larger size. And that's it. So the new S7 and S7 Edge, I'm gonna have full reviews, comparisons, everything very soon, as soon as they're out. But man, this thing is gonna be amazing. It's already looking to shape up to be an iPhone killer. And as much as I love the iPhone, I cannot help but appreciate when companies add features we actually want and need to these phones that'll help us in our daily lives. I mean, better one-handed usability, waterproofing. You don't have to worry about rain. You don't have to worry about using your phone in the shower anymore, or whatever it is. It's awesome. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Stay tuned for many more updates about these phones and how they compete. Have a great day. Enjoy your current phone until I force you to upgrade with a comparison video. Just kidding, but peace.